Right now, a massive wall of high pressure is locking itself over the western United States, and it is about to push temperatures into territory that most of these cities have never seen in the month of August. Death Valley, California is forecast to hit 126 degrees this weekend. Billings, Montana, which just shattered its all-time temperature record at 111 degrees 2 weeks ago, is now forecast to break a completely different record, its August record, at 106 degrees. Salt Lake City, which also just broke its all-time record at 109 degrees on July 12th, may break its own August record at 106 this Saturday. More than 50 temperature records could fall across 12 western states this weekend alone. That is roughly one record broken every 30 minutes. This is not a normal summer heat wave. This is the third heat dome to hit the United States in a single summer, and forecasters say this one is not going anywhere until at least the second week of August. Today we are going to break down exactly where this heat dome is hitting hardest, which cities are in the worst danger, what it is doing to the water supply and the power grid, and why scientists say the pattern driving all of this is only getting stronger. No dramatizing, no guessing. Just the confirmed forecasts, the real measurements, and what this means for the 40 million Americans sitting directly underneath it right now. If you live anywhere in the West right now, from Montana down to Arizona, I want to hear from you. What does it feel like where you are? Are your overnight temperatures dropping at all, or is the heat just staying through the night? Drop your city and your temperature in the comments. And if this is the kind of reporting you count on, real data on real events, no hype, consider subscribing. We cover every major heat event, every storm, every earthquake as it happens, so you always know what is coming before it arrives. So let us start with what is actually happening in the sky above the West. A very strong high-pressure system has parked itself over the western half of the country. It is not moving. It is not weakening. It is acting like a lid. Hot air near the ground wants to rise. Under a normal sky, it rises, it cools, it moves on. But under this system, the rising air hits the lid, gets pushed back down, and compresses. When air compresses, it heats up. That is a heat dome. The clearest way to picture it is a bowl turned upside down over a pot on the stove. The burner keeps heating the air inside the bowl. The bowl traps that heat and pushes it back down onto the food. Nothing gets out. Everything gets hotter. That is what is happening across the West right now. The engine driving this bowl is what meteorologists call an upper-level ridge. That is a zone of high pressure high up in the atmosphere that steers weather patterns. When an upper-level ridge gets stuck in one place, heat builds underneath it for days or even weeks. This ridge is stuck. Forecasters at the National Weather Service say the ridge is producing temperatures 10 to 20 degrees above normal, and that is measured against peak summer averages, not springtime numbers. In some spots, the vertical height of this dome in the atmosphere is running larger than usual, which means it is compressing even more hot air onto the surface than a typical dome would. Here's the part that makes this event different from anything the country has seen before. This is the third heat dome to hit the United States this summer. The first hit the East Coast from June 28th to July 5th. The second parked over the central United States in mid-July. The third is now flipped west, and it is the largest of the three. 3 separate heat domes, 3 different regions, 5 weeks. Every part of the continental United States has been under one of them at some point since late June. NOAA has already logged the continental United States as having its second hottest first half of any year on record. That is January through June. The data is final, and now the country is entering the peak of summer with a third dome overhead. Scientists say the reason these domes keep forming is tied to what is happening in the Pacific Ocean. A developing Super El Nino is fueling persistent upper-level ridging across North America. In plain terms, warmer Pacific water is changing the shape of the jet stream, and that new shape keeps building high-pressure lids over the country. The 2026 El Nino is tracking toward what climate scientists have called a truly mind-blowing margin above the previous record. We will come back to what that means later. For now, the point is simple. The atmosphere is loaded, and the West is sitting directly under the load. So that is what is happening above us. Now let us look at what it is doing on the ground, city by city, starting in the northern Rockies. Billings, Montana, 2 records in 2 weeks. On July 12th, the thermometer hit 111 degrees. That is the hottest temperature ever recorded in Billings in the city's entire history. Going back to when records began, it broke the all-time record. Now Billings is forecast to hit 106 degrees this Saturday. That is not the all-time record. That is the August record, a completely different category. Same city, different record, 20 days apart. Billings is a city of roughly 120,000 people, most of them in older homes, not built for triple-digit heat. Salt Lake City follows the same pattern. All-time record of 109 degrees, also set on July 12th. This Saturday, the forecast is 106, which could break the August record. Salt Lake City Metro is home to roughly 1.2 million people. Two of the biggest cities in the Mountain West are breaking two different kinds of records inside 3 weeks. Across the northern Rockies and northern plains, highs are running near 105 degrees. That is almost 20 degrees above normal for the last week of July. Cities like Missoula, Bozeman, and Great Falls are seeing temperatures they would normally see maybe twice a decade. Move south into the desert southwest and the numbers climb again. Phoenix, Tucson, and Las Vegas are all forecast between 110 and 120 degrees through the weekend. Phoenix alone has more than 1.6 million residents inside the city limits and about 5 million across the metro area. A large share of them are outdoor workers, delivery drivers, and construction crews who cannot simply stay inside. Then there is Death Valley. The forecast is 126 degrees. That is the hottest reading expected anywhere in the country this weekend, and it is close to the highest reliably recorded surface temperatures ever measured on Earth. 126 degrees is hot enough that asphalt begins to soften, and a car left in direct sun can reach 160 degrees inside within an hour. Across California, most of the state is looking at 100 to 110 degrees. Sacramento, Fresno, Bakersfield, and the inland valleys are the hottest. Even parts of the Los Angeles basin are expected to push past 100 degrees by early next week, as easterly breezes push desert air toward the coast. Add it all up, more than 50 daily high temperature records could fall across 12 western states this weekend alone. That works out to roughly one record broken every 30 minutes over a 48-hour window. Records that stood for 50, 70, in some cases nearly 100 years. The National Weather Service estimates that 10% of the continental United States will record its hottest day of 2026 by August 4th. 1/10 of the entire country hitting its peak temperature at the same time. Right now, 40 million Americans are under some form of heat warning, advisory, or excessive heat watch. That is roughly 1 in every 8 Americans. Not 1 in 8 in the West, 1 in 8 across the whole country. Every one of them is sitting under this same dome. But the daytime numbers are only half the story. What is happening after dark may actually be more dangerous. The human body has a built-in reset system. When the sun goes down, temperatures drop, and the body slowly cools itself overnight. It sheds the heat it absorbed during the day. It recovers. It prepares for the next day. That drop after sunset has a name. Meteorologists call it nocturnal cooling. It is the natural fall in temperature that gives the human body a chance to reset. When overnight lows stay above 75 degrees, that recovery window closes, and the damage builds night after night. When the body cannot cool down overnight, it enters the next day already carrying yesterday's heat. Core temperature stays elevated. The heart works harder to pump blood toward the skin to try to shed that heat. Blood pressure drops. Organs that depend on steady blood flow, the kidneys, the brain, the liver, start to struggle. After 2 or 3 nights without adequate cooling, even a healthy person begins to feel confused, dizzy, or nauseated. For someone over 65 or someone with heart disease or diabetes, 2 consecutive hot nights can trigger a medical emergency that would not have happened on day 1. The danger is cumulative. Day 1 is uncomfortable. Day 3 is dangerous. Day 5, without air conditioning, can be fatal. Under this heat dome, overnight lows are projected to sit at 75 to 80 degrees across most of the region. That is nearly 10 degrees above normal for late July. Bodies typically need overnight lows below 70 degrees to fully recover from a day of heat stress. Under this dome, they are not getting it. That is why heat kills more Americans than any other kind of weather. Heat kills more Americans every year than hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods combined. It is not close. In 2023, the country recorded 2,325 heat-related deaths. That is more than hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods combined for the same year. In 2,325 is up 117%, from 1,069 deaths in 1999. The trend line is not flat. It is climbing sharply. The rise is steepest for older adults. Between 2000 and 2021, heatwave-related mortality among Americans over the age of 65 rose 85%. The people most at risk are dying at nearly double the rate they were 20 years ago. Heat-related mortality is a term worth understanding. It refers to deaths caused either directly by overheating, like heat stroke, or by extreme heat making an existing condition suddenly worse. A person with heart disease, kidney disease, or diabetes can be pushed over the edge by a single hot night. Most victims are found alone, in homes without working air conditioning. Houston, Texas, has seen a 329% surge in heat-related emergency room visits since 2019. That is not a small hospital in a small town. That is one of the largest medical systems in the country, reporting more than 4 times the heat cases it saw 6 years ago. The first heat dome of this summer, the one that hit the East Coast from June 28th to July 5th, killed 44 people. 29 of those 44 deaths were in New Jersey alone, and that was in a region with widespread air conditioning access. Now imagine the same event pushed into the Mountain West where older housing stock and lower AC penetration are the norm. The comparison that keeps coming up is 2021. In late June of that year, a heat dome parked over the Pacific Northwest for 3 days. Portland hit 116 degrees, Seattle hit 108, Lytton, British Columbia, hit 121 degrees the day before the town burned to the ground. That single 2021 event killed more than 250 people in the United States and more than 400 in Canada. In Oregon alone, 116 heat deaths were confirmed. Most were elderly, most were found alone. Most had no air conditioning. One dome, 3 days, and it became one of the deadliest weather events in North American history. That event lasted 3 days. This current heat dome is forecast to last through at least early August, with a second wave of intensification expected around August 6th. The National Weather Service HeatRisk Index is currently at level 4 across large parts of the Southwest, the Mountain West, and the Northern Great Plains. HeatRisk level 4 is the highest alert level on the National Weather Service danger scale. It means anyone outdoors, especially older adults or people without air conditioning, faces serious risk. It is the same category the 2021 dome was rated at. Only this one is projected to last longer and cover more ground. The heat is not just breaking the human body, it is also breaking the systems we depend on to survive it. Start with the power grid. During the first heat dome of summer 2026, the PJM interconnection, which is the power grid serving 67 million people across 13 states from Illinois to New Jersey, hit 162 gigawatts of demand. That was the second highest load in the grid's entire history. To put that in scale, 1 gigawatt is roughly enough electricity to power 750,000 homes. So 162 gigawatts is enough demand to power more than 120 million homes at the same instant. Nearly every household on the eastern grid was pulling at once. Wholesale electricity prices during that same event spiked to $2,500 per megawatt hour. Normal is around $40 per megawatt hour. So spot prices ran more than 60 times normal for stretches of the afternoon. That cost gets passed down the line to households and small businesses in the months that follow. The federal government has already invoked 3 emergency power orders in 2026 under Section 202C of the Federal Power Act. Those orders authorize power plants to exceed their normal pollution limits so they can run at maximum output during grid emergencies. 3 in 1 summer is unusual. It reflects how thin the margins have become. The pressure on the grid is not only from air conditioning. Data center demand now accounts for 63% of PJM's capacity market price surge, with 32 gigawatts of new demand growth projected by 2030. In plain terms, the power grid is being asked to handle record heat and record data center growth at the same time. Now the water. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the 2 largest reservoirs on the Colorado River, are sitting at a combined historic low. Together, they supply water to roughly 40 million people across 7 states, including Nevada, Arizona, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. The level is still dropping. To understand what historic low means at Lake Mead, picture this. The original intake pipes that Las Vegas built to pull drinking water from the lake are now above the waterline. They are dry. The city had to bore a new, deeper tunnel underneath the lake bed just to keep water flowing. That tunnel, completed in 2015, was designed as an emergency backup. It is now the primary water source for more than 2 million people in the Las Vegas metro area. The bathtub ring of white mineral deposits around the canyon walls at Lake Mead now stretches more than 150 feet above the current waterline. That white ring is the distance between where the water used to be and where it sits today. A heat dome makes that worse in 2 ways. First, direct evaporation from the lake surface speeds up under extreme heat. Second, below average snowfall last winter in central and southern California means less runoff feeding into the Colorado River basin this year. Less coming in, more going out. Then there is the fire. Heat pulls moisture out of soil and plants through a process called evapotranspiration. Under a heat dome, this speeds up dramatically. Vegetation dries out, fuels ignite faster, fires spread faster once they start. So far, in 2026, 3.3 million acres have already burned across the United States. That is well above the seasonal average, and it is only the last week of July. Of those 3.3 million acres, 1.5 million are in Oregon alone. National wildfire preparedness is currently at level 5, which is the highest tier on the federal scale. Level 5 means that firefighting resources are stretched to their absolute limit, and multiple geographic areas are competing for the same crews, aircraft, and equipment. Along the coast, the heat is pushing people toward the water. Los Angeles County lifeguards logged 2,000 ocean rescues in a single week as beachgoers fled inland heat. Many of those swimmers ran into dangerous swells from Hurricane Genevieve churning offshore. The heat pushed people out of their homes, and the ocean was not safe either. Every one of these systems, the grid, the water, the fire lines, is being pushed to its limit, and the force behind all of it is not slowing down. The question is not just why this heat dome is here. The question is why this keeps happening 3 times in one summer across 3 different parts of the country. The answer sits in the Pacific Ocean. El Niño is a natural warming of Pacific Ocean waters near the equator that shifts weather patterns across the entire planet. It happens on a rough cycle of every 3 to 7 years, but not every El Niño is the same size. The 2026 El Niño is tracking toward what scientists have described as a truly mind-blowing margin above the previous record. Peak Pacific temperatures could reach 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit above average, which is 0.8 degrees Celsius higher than the record 2015 to 2016 Super El Niño. That would make this the strongest El Niño ever recorded in the modern instrument era. When the Pacific runs that hot, the jet stream over North America bends into new shapes. Those shapes favor persistent upper-level ridging over the western part of the continent. In plain terms, the sky keeps building lids over the west, and the lids keep getting stuck in place. That is why the domes keep coming. The forecast is not offering much relief. The NOAA Climate Prediction Center is projecting above-average temperatures across the west through at least the first half of August. A second intensification wave is expected around August 6th, which could rival or exceed this weekend's peaks in some cities. The Climate Prediction Center's Week 2 hazards outlook shows elevated heat risk extending to at least August 10th. Weather forecasters have warned that easterly breezes could funnel intense heat into the Los Angeles basin by next weekend, potentially producing temperatures hotter than the March 2026 heat wave that already broke early season records. Climate scientist Daniel Swain has noted publicly that the overlap between record warmth, extreme dryness, and low mountain snowpack now feeding the wildfires across the West is, in his words, simply not a coincidence. Multiple background conditions are lining up in the same direction at the same time, and each one amplifies the others. What the Super El Niño means in practical terms is that the conditions producing these heat domes are not fading as summer ends. El Niño typically reaches its peak strength between October and January. The atmosphere is going to keep loading energy into the system through the fall. Hurricane activity in the eastern Pacific is already running well above average. Western drought is expected to deepen, and the jet stream pattern that keeps building these high-pressure lids over the west is forecast to persist on and off through the end of the year. This dome will eventually break. But what scientists are watching now is not just this event, it is the pace. Put 2021 next to 2026, and the picture sharpens. In 2021, one heat dome hit one region, the Pacific Northwest, for 3 days. It killed more than 600 people across the United States and Canada. Scientists studying the event described it as a 1 in 10,000 year event under the old climate baseline. In 2026, 3 heat domes have hit 3 different regions of the country inside 5 weeks. And the summer is not over. The East Coast Dome, the Central United States Dome, and now the Western Dome that is still building. The 2021 event was a single punch. 2026 is a pattern. That is the shift that scientists keep pointing to. Not the temperature of any one day, the frequency, the spacing, the overlap. The danger is not the peak temperature on any single day. The danger is the pace. Records that stood for decades are falling weeks apart in the same cities. Billings broke its all-time record on July 12th and is on track to break its August record on August 2nd. Salt Lake City is on the same trajectory. When the extraordinary becomes the routine, the systems built for the old normal start to fail. The question is no longer whether heat domes will come. The question is whether the country is ready for the speed at which they keep arriving. So here's what I want to know from you, and this one matters. Do you have reliable air conditioning where you live right now? And if you do you know someone nearby who does not? An older neighbor, a family member down the street, a friend in an older building without central air, someone who might need a check-in this weekend before Saturday's peak. Drop a comment with your AC situation, and if you can, one name or one door you plan to knock on before the heat lands. Subscribe, because we are tracking this heat dome day by day. If it intensifies again around August 6th, the way forecasters expect, we will have the numbers, the city breakdowns, and the grid data before anyone else. Share this video with someone in the West who needs to see it before the weekend hits. That share might be the reason someone checks on the neighbor who needs it most.